anybody else just watch wrestling these days, not including WWE for obvious reasons, and just go, I wonder who the hell is going to turn up this time? Because we had another episode of Impact Wrestling, obviously, week to week, wrestling never stops, and somebody else from another company went, oh, hello, I've gone through the forbidden door. We can't even call it the forbidden door anymore, because it's not forbidden. It's just a door. My name is Simon Miller. Welcome to WhatCulture Wrestling and welcome to Ups and Downs, the show where we watch every single piece of sports entertainment we possibly can, and we give the good bits an up and we give the bad bits a down, and then you disagree because I'm a bald a-hole. Don't want to say the word, YouTube gets mad. Let's find out if it's going to happen again, and let's up those downs for Impact Wrestling. Everything with the Bullet Club in Impact Wrestling is how this week's show began, and what a lovely sentence that is to say. Again, do not forget, here's the Bullet Club. Oh my gosh, the Bullet Club in Impact. It just makes you feel pretty good about life. As such, our first match was indeed Chris Bey taking on Juice Robinson, because of course outside of that you also have Jay White, who's in a big row with David Finlay. So this was just tying in and ticking all the boxes, especially asking you the question, well, is Jay White gonna let Chris Bey into the Bullet Club, or is he gonna tell him, you screwed up again, you out of here? Chris was kicking ass at first as well, and at one point was even doing maneuvers in time to the crowd chants, and I really liked that. But also surely this whole idea is to take Chris Bey on to the next level, because not only does the audience really like him, but he's involved in a pretty big storyline, again, Bullet Club. And it could go one of two ways as well. One I shall tell you about in a minute, because it did tie into what we were seeing on the screen, but I have this sneaking suspicion deep down in my tum-tum that maybe you get Jay White versus Chris Bey when Chris Bey doesn't actually join the BC. I mean, this is probably me just fantasy booking, but I'm allowed to do it. I'm a massive nerd. Given that we did have people on the outside, we were causing some shenanigans because Jay White was trying to cast distraction. But actually then, David Finlay saw this, so he went up and stopped it. But because he had done this, we caused the distraction anyway, and poor old Juice Robinson, he couldn't handle what was going on. He was all afleur. It meant he got smacked by the Art of Finesse, and he did lose. And afterwards, yeah, Jay White gave a new t-shirt to Chris Bey. Of course, it was a Bullet Club t-shirt, and now you're meant to think that he's officially in. But like I say, just something about this makes me go, I'm gonna wait and see. I don't know what that was. It's like some kind of broken robot, but this is all very good. It's ticking along nicely and it's getting up. Interview with the Elite afterwards, and they basically said, we are the best, everybody else sucks, and if you try and beat us in a wrestling ring, you're gonna fail. I was like, okay, why don't you sit on the fence? Somebody was always going to be upset by this, and amazingly, it was Violent by Design who told the Good Brothers specifically, we want our tag team title match rematch. That's not the way to word that at all, because it was in our contract. And I was like, man, somebody better sort this out, because I remember them losing to Willie Mack and Rich Swann only 7 days ago. But look, Impact, they noticed this stuff. It's one of the reasons I like the show, so we'll talk about it in a bit. More falling out between Fire and Flavor too, because essentially they also had a little backstage skit here, and Kiera Hogan spent the entire time taking passive-aggressive shots at Tasha Steelz. It's always the way in wrestling, isn't it? You may as well not get together if you want to be a team, because within a specific amount of time, you're just gonna fall out again. Nobody lasts. It's one of the reasons why the New Day is so beautiful. The Drama King Matthew Raywalt then officially made his first appearance on weekly Impact Wrestling television. Of course, he made his proper debut over the weekend at Homecoming, and because he had teamed up there with Deonna Purrazzo to win the whole thing, he said, everybody, say hello to Deonna Purrazzo. Out came our women's champ, but once again, she just started to say, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, nobody can defeat me. And as she was scratching her own back, Mickie James interrupted her again. I was like, Mixter, do you not remember what Deonna told you before and what she's about to tell you again? Basically, Purrazzo was pissed. The reason Mickie James had done this, though, is because, of course, she wants Deonna Purrazzo to come to the NWA Empower event, and just to, like, hook her in, like she was doing some kind of fishing, she said, and here's your opponent. And it's when the Forbidden Door comes in again, because who walked down to this wrestling ring? None other than Melina. So it was pretty cool, all things considered, and they did agree that they were going to have this match at the pay-per-view. So like I say, you just never know what the hell is going to go down. you could pop up on Impact Wrestling at one point. You'd be like, well, I thought I was going to end up here eventually. Aren't I a proud pup? It's also a good way to cross the streams because some people will be like, oh man, I want to watch the NWA event. And then you watch the NWA event. They say, hey, you should watch this Impact Wrestling event. It's nice watching other promotions prop the other one up. It's how it always should be. So I suppose it can have an up. I mean, it was kind of just there, but it did its job. We then just had the most Impact explanation ever for why Taylor Wilde vanished for a couple of months. But again, this is why I appreciate them as much as they do, because they always try. And as long as you're trying, Simon Miller will respect you. Because basically somebody had reported her at the Canadian border, and she had figured out that person had given the name of Calvin with a K. So now she hates Calla with a K, and she hates Tenille Dashwood for obvious reasons. I've no idea how she did find out this name, because I doubt if you get stopped at the border and they say, oh, we received some kind of anonymous phone call, and you go, well, who was it? And they just tell you. I mean, that defeats the whole point of being anonymous. Still though, there's a lot of companies out there that just go, if we don't say anything, maybe they'll just forget. Impact never does. Well, they sometimes do, but usually no. And then, I don't even know what to tell you. But we saw Su Yung, and we saw the undead Kimberly, and Kimberly was all like, oh, mummy, I'm gonna go out there and get you some souls. I was like, imagine somebody had never watched pro wrestling and then they saw this. But again, I respect it so much. Impact proper crazy. X Division #1 contender match was up next, and I still think Impact could make a bigger deal of this. I don't really get why they don't, but this was also pretty good. Because it was Jake Something versus Trey Miguel versus Daivari versus Rohit Raju, and in the early going, it was all about turning Jake Something into some kind of a monster. I mean, he was just kicking the crap out of everyone, after, of course, in the very early going, we'd had around about 749 dives. Something also hit this crazy cross body, so he knew what he was trying to do, and it kind of backfired on him, because everyone else was then like, this guy's kind of kicking our ass, maybe we need to team up to take him down? And they did. Trey Miguel wasn't really involved in this, so from nowhere he was back and he hit the Lance Chancery on Rohit Raju for a really close near fall, but then Jake was back in the ring and he was doing these power bombs where I swear he was trying to kill people. I mean, ironically, the impact on those. It basically left Rohit for dead, so Jake Something then blasted Daivari with the Black Hole Slam, and the referee went 1, and the referee went 2, and the referee went 3. So now your next X Division title match is Jake Something versus Josh Alexander. I think that will be pretty good. We then saw Raju backstage, and he was just losing his mind because he felt like he'd been screwed over, and he was tossing bags all over the place. But then Matt Cardona walked in. It's like, hey man, why are you throwing bags? That was my bag. Also, not only did you almost hit me, but you also hit Chelsea Green. So I now really do think that these two may feud over the fact that a bag got thrown. You have no idea how much I love this stuff. It's just so silly. But hey, look, at least it's something. I don't mean Jake Something. There's the problem with that name again. It's not like they're just having a fight for having a fight's reasons. Somebody threw some apparel, and that's made somebody else mad. Josh Alexander was then here, and he was just being the man. He said he's going to defeat Jake Something because that's what he does. And when Daivari was also getting upset that he lost, he was like, all right, fine. I'll fight you next week. I'll beat you. Then I'll beat Jake Something, and then I'll beat everybody else. This, my friends, is how you build a babyface. Jordynne Grace and Rachel Ellering then defeated Fire and Flavor. Now, on the one hand, this makes all the sense in the world because we are about to break up Fire and Flavor, but I am still sat here waiting for Rachel Ellering to be screwed over by Jordynne Grace, and I think I'm wrong. Now, it could still happen. We could be playing the long game here, but if so, Impact's doing a very good job. Look at me. I have no clue. But this was smartly put together because you assumed that Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan were going to be defeated, and if we are going to keep Rachel Ellering and Jordynne Grace together for a while, they needed a win. So again, we were just going tick, 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 tick. The former tag team champions at first reminded us why they were such a good pairing, but you already know how this went. Eventually, Steele started to drop the ball because she just can't get it together. I mean, even then, technically, it was the fault of Kiera Hogan because she got double slammed here by Ellering and Grace, and she got pinned for the 1, 2, 3. But Tasha, she tried to break the pinfall up. She wasn't able to do it, so the finger of blame was kind of pointed at her. But that just seems drastically unfair. There was more to this though, because straight afterwards, Savannah Evans were here. My word, she's a tall pup. And she beat the living hell out of Tasha Steelz. And do you know what Kiera Hogan did? Nothing. And on commentary, we had Matt Striker and D'Lo Brown even saying, I think Kiera Hogan has orchestrated this. So there it is. If you were a big fan of Fire and Flavor, they did. But hey, they did have a good run. up. Interview with Frankie Kazarian followed, and you don't even need me to explain this to you. He hates the elite, he is the elite hunter, so wherever they go, he is going to follow and use this wonderful door that we have talked about throughout this episode of Ups and Downs to ensure he kills them all. He also mentioned the fact that he's not overly keen about teaming up with Sami Callihan and Eddie Edwards, but because Tommy Dreamer has put it together, he is going to trust it. So that was the nice planting of seeds that maybe, just maybe, when we get to our main event, the good guys may just fall apart. Scott D'Amore then absolutely smashed it because Violent by Design went to knock on his door and said, look, Scott, we're just letting you know we have a rematch clause in our contract and we are going to cash it in. And Scott was like, yeah, you can do that, but here's the problem. Willie Mack and Rich Swann beat you. Who else said that? It was me. So therefore, you can have your match, but they're going to go into it as well. It's going to be a triple threat. This is good wrestling booking. It's just logical. Sometimes I need logic in my sports entertainment. It calms my bald head. Okay, cool, right, look, Steve Macklin. I massively respect what he's doing right now, because we had another one of these squash matches where he walks to the ring, takes on some guy I've never heard of, and comes up with these moves that make you go, yeah, well, that really would have hurt. Like at one point, his opponent was in the corner, and he kind of just did like a torpedo headbutt. It looked like it sucked. The thing is though, yeah, we have now done this a lot. Macklin comes out looking like he's never had a good day in his life. The person he's fighting looks like they're about to crap themselves because they're so worried. He does absolutely ruin them, and then he leaves. This time it was frontman Jar C, and that is one of the greatest wrestling names I've ever heard in my life. And once again, it was just murder. Steve Macklin beat on him, and he beat on him, and he beat on him. And because I have seen it so many times, I checked out a little bit just because I didn't have that emotional engagement. When you take all that and wrap it up, you've got to get it down. Thankfully though, I think Impact actually picked up on this as well, because when he was trying to break this fall in two, out came Petey Williams and he chased Steve Macklin away. They then looked at each other to say, ha ha, we will have a wrestling program, and that's good. That's a good way to get Steve Macklin started off. Petey Williams is probably somebody he can beat, and then we can finally find out in what direction he is gonna tread. I just kind of feel like we probably could have pulled the trigger a week ago, but as always, better late than never. All About Me with Tennille Dashwood followed, and it was its wonderful awkwardness as always. This week she had the Impact Doctor on, and I think she was trying to make it clear that Taylor Wilde is dangerous to the company, but because all of her guests don't understand the concept, they kind of just looked at each other. It made me laugh. Scott D'Amore eventually walked in and said this whole thing was nonsense, and what we are going to do is next week have Tennille Dashwood versus Taylor Wilde. I suppose this did exactly what it was intended to do. Chris Sabin interview next, and he really hates Moose. And in fact, he hates Moose so much, he's going to win the #1 contender battle royal next week. He's going to beat Kenny Omega for the world championship. And when Moose wants a shot of Chris Sabin, he's going to say no. What a child. That really did make me laugh though, because what a vindictive long-term plan. And unfortunately, I think what is going to happen is that Chris Sabin will not do this, and Moose will track him down and rip off his head. This brought us to our main event as well, and there was no universe on the planet where this was going to be bad. Because it was indeed Sami Callihan, Eddie Edwards and Frankie Kazarian taking on the Good Brothers and Kenny Omega, and they just had a manic all over the place 6-man tag team match, and it's getting it up. The start to this was bonkers. Everybody just ran at everybody else, including Sami Callihan, grabbing Kenny Omega and trying to give him the pile driver straight away. It didn't really work, but Frankie Kazarian then took inspiration from this because he was going absolutely crazy too. Unfortunately, it didn't work out because Luke Gallows smacked him from behind, and then they started to beat him up. Frankie did eventually get somewhat of a hot tag to Eddie Edwards, but again, this was about as successful as me trying to enter myself into a long hair contest. I think he got in about 4 moves, and then once again, he was getting beaten up. The feeling in the air was that the Elite were trying to keep Sami Callihan out of the thing, because of course he's the craziest of all of them, which also meant when he did get in there, everybody panicked. It's also when the tag team klaxon went off, so all of a sudden it was just move, 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 go, go, go. By the end of it, I felt a little bit exhausted. Callihan also got triple neck breakered at one point, which actually looked pretty good, and trying to keep up with this was actually impossible. So I suppose the 2 beats that you really do need to know about is that Sami Callihan caught Kenny Omega on the apron and gave him the cactus special. Kenny Omega, man. Just taking that on a random episode of Impact, and then back in the ring, Eddie Edwards was able to hit the Boston Knee Party onto Carl Anderson, and because there was nobody around apart from Don Callis, who was watching like, man, these absolute buffoons, the referee counted the 3 and Eddie Edwards got the win. All right. There was even more to this too, and I suppose it's why Ed did get the victory, because as he was standing there going, yeah, I'm the best, W. Morrissey was back, and my word, He hit Eddie with this crazy powerbomb and then stood above and just went, I'm really tall. So I guess we're back to try and make him a mega star. It did make him feel like a big deal, although I was a little bit like, why is nobody helping Eddie Edwards? Like, where is Tommy Dreamer? Although you can justify it when it comes to Sami Callihan, why the hell would he hate one of his biggest enemies ever? And I suppose Frankie Kazarian was just dead somewhere, so I guess he can get a pass. It does feel like we're gonna go all the way with W though, and good for him, and otherwise, it was just a really good episode of Impact actually, because I just love all this talent coming from everywhere. I mean, you got the NWA, you got New Japan, you got AEW. I have no idea who's coming next, and that makes me want to tune into the show, and that's why it's getting it up. Now, please do leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of Impact or any kind of wrestling. It's up to you, it's your world. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Make sure you check out WhatCulture.com because we will keep you up to date with the wrestling scene. Come say hello on social media so we can say hello back, and we got a ton of videos. Why not watch another one? My name is Simon from WhatCulture, the king, or some form of royalty when it comes to ups and downs. I don't know, I don't make the rules. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I will see you soon.